Hello, everyone. So my name is Manuel Morales. I am the director of FinML in Montreal, Canada. And this is my lecture. So thanks for inviting me to be part of this event. So I'll be talking about artificial intelligence in banking, focusing on challenges and opportunities. So I will be presenting here my experience as a chief AI scientist at National Bank of Canada. So I am a researcher at the University of Montreal doing applied research in machine learning as it applies to banking and insurance. But for the past 2 years, I've spent time as the chief AI scientist at National Bank, leading their initiative of transformation. So what I'm bringing here it's that perspective of a scientist working with a financial institution, and maybe share some of my experiences in terms of challenges and opportunities for AI in banking. So I always like to start this presentation with this slide here, because that conveys the challenge that this implies. So artificial intelligence, everybody talks about it, right? But it seems some of the institutions are trying to leverage this technology, and maybe we're wondering how come we haven't yet seen any successful use of artificial intelligence, right? We have seen bits and pieces here and there, but I think we have yet to see like that big success story in finance, like the ones we have seen in computer vision, in the healthcare, and other places, right? So this quote is interesting because actually it pinpoints the fact that artificial intelligence is a little bit like electricity in terms of technology, right? When electricity came about, it took still a few decades before the infrastructure that was needed to exploit that technology came to be. So it's pretty much the same situation in finance with artificial intelligence. It's like there are a lot of breakthroughs from the scientific standpoint, but then the institutions themselves, they do not have the infrastructure, whether it is hardware or whether it is software, or also they don't have the mind shift that it takes to see this. And so this quote refers to that, is that at that point, some point in time when electricity came about, they even hired vice presidents of electricity to understand how they would tackle this problem. So that's what is going on right now in finance, right? They're trying to find strategies in which 10 years from now, banks which are born non-digital from the beginning. There are institutions that have been around for a long time. All of a sudden, they find themselves in the middle of a crossroads where they have to leverage technology and artificial intelligence to catch up, right? So that's a little bit my presentation. So not so much on the technical side. I will try to maybe address some interesting points from the technical side, but that's going to be my presentation. So I will start with this slide here. So and I'm sure you know it. I'm preaching to the choir here since you already are converted, let's say. So we know that in finance, it's easy. It's both easy and hard to create value with artificial intelligence. So it's easy in the sense that the technology is out there, but it's harder in the sense that it takes more than just hiring talent to get transformation going, right? It's not only because I hired 20 PhDs on machine learning and with experience in artificial intelligence, and all of a sudden I can have a pipeline of a piece of technology that leverages AI and data, right? And this maybe at the base of this is this myth, right? That especially in finance, people tend to think that AI is just another complex piece of statistics or analytics or automation. So it's just one more model, right? But we know better than that. We know that actually what falls under AI is actually an opportunity to improve the way we do things, right? The way we processes and services are provided, and data is collected as well. Companies that were born digital, they know this, right? But banks, they are just beginning to learn this, and of course, it differs from country to country. So what I'm sharing here, it's the experience from the Canadian perspective. Okay, so so everybody has been talking about how the financial industry is changing, right? Everybody talks about disruption, and we understand why the time seems right to start seeing disruptive technologies in banking, and we're already seeing it, right? So on one end, we have technology that it's being developed and that it's out there. So artificial intelligence, blockchain, new methods in machine learning, everything is happening there. We also have on another end, we have clients, customers that have been accustomed to a particular type of experience when dealing with the digital world, right? So there's the Amazon, Googles, and Facebooks of the world that have achieved a very high end of providing this type of personalized services, right? So customers are accustomed to that, and they're expecting that from all of their relationships with any service provider, including banks. On the other end, you have fintechs as well. So there are startups that are more agile than large institutions that begin to leverage that technology and provide alternative ways of banking. And then, of course, you have the big players, the big banks of the world trying to catch up. So all of the ingredients are there. Each country is different, again. But at least there's a common denominator here. It's that at least for most of the Western countries, half of the new entrants in the banking sector are technology based, right? And the only difference is how much they're capturing in terms of revenue, right, or clients. Like for instance, in the UK, you have that. They're capturing 12% of the new clients or new revenue. They go to new disruptive technologies, whereas in Canada, it's only 2%. So I do not know how it is in the rest of the world, but that gives you a picture of how this is very dependent on the country, regulations, and so on. But worldwide, there's an let's say arms race to try to use this technology and provide better service to clients, and giving new tools to employees to do their jobs, right? And all of that falls under the buzzword artificial intelligence, right? Now, what does that actually mean in terms of examples, right? So opportunities, and then I apologize in advance for some of my slides are in French, but anyway, I guess it's pretty understandable. But so opportunities, I just highlighted a few here. So, for instance, in marketing, it's clear that the target would be a very personalized offering, right? So that implies better understanding our clients and their interactions with our digital platforms. So there's a lot of data and metadata that is collected, and that allows us to understand the customers' profiles, but only their behavior. So that allows us to better target our marketing campaigns. So that artificial intelligence plays a role there. Communication, right? Understanding what the client thinks, so his voice, through call centers, chatbots, different forums or platforms where the client interacts with the institution. That creates or generates a lot of data that it's underexploited, right? And now technology that falls under the category of artificial intelligence allows us to exploit and to leverage that information, right? Because we have speech-to-text technologies, we have natural language processing technologies, dialogue systems that allow us to to leverage that information, and again understand better the needs of the client, and that near real time. So that's another opportunity. That's particular relevant today because of the COVID context, right? In Canada, there were a lot of time that was put into adapting our channels of communication with clients to better assist them in this situation where now they cannot go physically to the branches, where there's new context, right? Like in most countries, there have been some sort of government strategic help aid plan to help citizens as well as companies, and that implies new processes to fund or to access urgency funds, and that just overloaded the communication channels of financial institutions, because they were the ones who had to respond to their clients and help them navigate through these new contexts. So deploying chatbots and deploying solutions that would help call centers to better and more efficiently deal with this new demand was very important. I will skip that. Well, the financial advice, clearly it's useful for advisors to better understand their clients, right? What that means is understand their risk, their risk profile, but also their behavior as well, right? How they spend their money, and what type of consumer he is, so that you can better understand what type of saver or investor he is, so that you can better provide advice. Decision and predictions, that's usually when people think AI in finance, they are thinking about this, right? They're thinking, how can we use state-of-the-art machine learning, deep learning to make better predictions and understand fraud, risk, financial markets. How can I use that to better do predictions, right? So most of the time people think about, when they think about AI, they think here. And I think that's one of the places where the mind shift has yet to occur. Because usually when you go to a team that does advanced analytics and they've been playing around with what they call AI, basically what they're just doing, they're just using a straightforward deep learning network, and they use it instead of another type of model, right? And of course, they will sometimes, very often, they will see that the performance is not as good as before. It's just because they're just using a deep network just to replace an existing model. What they do not see is that actually deep learning is about knowledge representation, stacking different types of architectures in a tailor-made way, such that you produce new features to represent profiles in a way that you can better predict, right? And some of the institutions are doing that. Some of them are not quite there yet. So there's a lot of opportunities here. But I will go with I'm checking the time here. I will go with the operations as well, let's say. So what I mean by there is the way the back office works is there's a lot of paperwork, right? So again, natural language processing will help, and document processing helps here to do those operations in a more efficient way. So lots of opportunities for using AI technologies here, and we're seeing that. But I would like to spend the remaining of my time talking about challenges. So again, like I said at the beginning, it's easy, but it's also hard. It's hard because it requires to have the data infrastructure that it required. So it requires financial institutions to move away from their legacy infrastructure and move towards some sort of a data exchange where data points can be exposed, so that any team working with the data can just plug whatever they need. They create a model. The model outputs a new variable or insight that should also integrate it into that exchange so that all the teams can have that insight, right? So that's a challenge, setting that up. Talent, of course, there are not that many people that have those skill sets. Organizational challenges, that's also one of the most important challenges. It's people are not in that mindset yet. Again, like I said, they just, one example, it's that idea of just taking a deep learning model and use it to replace another one. That's not where what we call AI has to offer, right? Maybe I will jump to that part now, since I don't want to go over my talk here. But there's also the social impact part to it, right? What I mean by that, it's when you deploy something and you tag it artificial intelligence, you have to have the governance framework that backs you up, right? That can reassure clients that you're doing it the right way, and you are respecting the data they're generating, their privacy, and that you are doing it with a responsible and ethically responsible angle, right? So that's also an important part of it. So, what is that the AI actually brings? It's a new way of doing things, right? And I'm 3 minutes here, so probably I will just skip this one, and I will go straight to here. So it's a different way of doing things. In the static way of looking at this, you had a data dump, you had models, the data would come in, and then you would have an output. And then the output was consumed by other teams, right? Other teams that would make a business decision. Now, the idea is that you have new ways of interacting with the client, creating a feedback loop that goes back into the model, helps the model better understand behaviors or the client, and that feedback loop is what it's important here, and that AI brings about. Okay, so I'm just trying to. So I will go here. So what does that mean? It means that there has to be a mind shift in the way we deploy our solution, right? Anything that a bank or a financial institution deploys must at some point collect data as well. It cannot be as before, where it was just a one-way interaction, because the more we interact with the client, the more data we're collecting, and the more our models can represent the knowledge and use it somewhere else, right? So that's one of the things. And probably I will just conclude with this here. The fear of change, right? So new technologies often face reluctancy from the part of the decision makers, and that's even so more true in banks. So this is the type of mindset that you will find at high levels in financial institutions, right? So I will translate this for you. So it says, modern work submerges people into a sea of data. And this abundance of information, it's not good for people since it creates confusion. So this seems to be something that somebody out there could be saying now regarding big data and artificial intelligence. This actually was said in 1565, and that was referring to printing, right? So I always like to end up with this because this shows that everywhere you will go, you will find some reluctancy about using technology, and it happens now just as it happened before. So that's one of the main challenges that you will find, other than the technical ones, when you try to deploy new technologies in banking and financial services. And I think I'm out of time, so I'm gonna stop here, and then we will move to questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Manuel, for your amazing presentation. So for sure, we have a lot of questions for you. Are you ready?
Yeah. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. We have 5 minutes, so I'm just checking the Discord channel. Okay, the first question is, are there any actual real-world use cases of blockchain based on your experience?
From what I can say is from the perspective of my own experience at National Bank, and yes, there were a few proof of concepts, but to my knowledge, there's nothing actually out there, at least coming from banks or financial institutions. But the application seems very, very promising. Like just the idea of creating new marketplaces. That's something they're exploring. Yes, I wouldn't be able to give you more details on that, but
Okay. So the second question is a bit longer. So there have been examples in history which unethical financial speculation has negative impact in people's life. The application of artificial intelligence driven to financial can be dangerous to the extent. So what is your perspective on this topic, and what measure are company currently taking to this matter, to solve this problem?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, I think I mentioned that a little bit in my presentation. It's one of the major roadblocks when trying to deploy AI at scale in a financial institution. It's the governance structure that needs to be in place to make sure that banks do not lose that trust, right? Like I mentioned, I think one of the main assets of a bank is the trust that it has, right? It's a very regulated market, and when people out there hear banks using AI, they are leveraging the data that the customers are allowing the banks to use. There's a lot of concern out there. So one of the reasons why banks, at least in Canada, are not deploying anything at scale, it's because they are going right now through the process of putting in place governance frameworks that allow to have the right people around the table when there's the design of a new product, when there's the discussion around what kind of data I'm going to be using. Do we have the permit to do it? How are we going to do this? Is this invading privacy somehow? So all of those questions have to be answered, not only for those places where there's regulation in place, like when you're trying to come up with a credit score, but even in other places. So the idea is to avoid those cases where reputation of a bank gets compromised, because then that would be huge, right? So that's very important for banks.
Yeah. It's, ethical stuff it's very important in all the way for showing AI and financial. Okay, we have more or less 1 minute, and there are a lot of questions. I want to read this one because it's very easy. There are any specific techniques to predict a particular stock in the market? I could answer for you.
Yeah, there are many, and you know better than me. At least in National Bank, there are teams that are beginning to use, for the past few years, neural networks architectures, especially conceived to do forecasting of time series or sequential data. Also, there are techniques where we're trying to exploit unstructured information, right? That it's not the actual flow that you see within the market databases. You want to exploit also other sources of alternative data. So that takes you to the realm of text understanding, right? So there's also other techniques there. But maybe just to close that question, that's a very interesting question. But as I was mentioning in my talk, at least where more impact is created, it's in a bank, it's in the retail side. At least in Canada, that's where AI it's mostly being used. Even though in financial markets they've been playing around with this kind of techniques coming from deep learning in the forecasting context, right?